Thank you all for coming. My name's Gabe from the Search for Tiki. This is OHANA, Luau at the Lake. Of course, I have to give props to Suzanne for allowing me to do this, and Caroline, of course, for organizing everything, and Extine for introducing me to OHANA in the very first place. So thank you to all three of you guys. Also, I can say, matter of fact, all of you OHANA peoples, I've been to Tiki events all across the country, and there is only one OHANA, for sure. You guys do things differently here. It's always interesting, it's always a good time. So you should give yourselves a round of applause for making this one of the best events in the country. I've taken photos the past couple of years. I'm taking photos again this year. So these are some of the photos. If you want to, tag your friends, that kind of stuff, and you want to see some funny photos from this weekend, I don't post them on the Search for Tiki because I don't want to use that account. But I do post them on my Facebook. So if you're not friends with me on Facebook, it's okay. Even if we're not buddy-buddy, if we haven't gone to a bar, you can send me a friend request, and you can see all those photos. Gabriel, bascom. So before we really kick things off, there's a movie coming out called Cabali and the Tiki Mug Session. And I'm so excited to see it. I haven't seen it in its entirety, but we previewed a trailer at Tiki Oasis earlier this year. So you have to part in the Tiki Oasis advert in the beginning. Didn't want to leave that in, but it is what it is. But it's an incredible movie that I'm looking forward to, and I want to share a clip of it so you guys can get excited about it too.
Came into where I was going to have to come up with a design for a mug, I'm torn in all these different directions. I mean, I have hundreds of mugs, and I love so many different aspects of it, and how do you distill all that down into just one mug? You have to find the right person to design it, and so many great mug makers right now, they're in really high demand.
I always feel like I'm a little bit behind the curve. Like I'm not on the cutting edge of who the latest artists are, but I can tell you who I've noticed, Odd Rodney here in Scottsdale or Phoenix is one of my favorites.
Matt Reese.
John Mulder.
John Mulder.
Bosco.
Crazy Al.
Shag.
Tiki Diablo.
Notch. Daniel Mann from Australia is one of my faves. Wendy Savola.
Thor.
Gecko from Hawaii.
Macbeth. Big Toe. Myself. And Doug Horn.
Derek Gallagher. Tiki Tony.
Carol Grayman. Tiki Rob.
Tiki Rob. Tiki Rob.
Tiki Rob.
Tiki Rob.
A guy walked into my graphics studio one day and said, do you make postcards? And I said, sure. And then he looked at my tiki costume that was in my office and said, oh, that's a nice tiki. And then he turned around and walked out. But the next day he came back with pictures to put on a postcard, and they were all of ceramics. And I said, oh, do you do slip cast ceramics? And he said, I sure do. I said, well, I'll help you with your postcard. Actually, it turned into a book. I helped him with his book. In exchange, he taught me how to make mugs.
Rob and I decided to get a kiln, and I remember the day Rob, I think, found it on Craigslist. I remember going pretty far into the jungle to pick up this kiln. I think we brought it over to Rob's house. I think it'll hold about 9 total, depending on the size. So we'd make our mugs, and it was pretty cool. That was the start, and we did that for about 4 or 5 years, probably. We shared that kiln.
Right here, my first design. Carson.
So that is Cabali and the Tiki Mug Session. If you want to know about it, let's move on. So this is me. I am the Search for Tiki. I founded it in 2020. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But when Ooga Booga was going down, it hadn't gone down yet, but I knew we needed an alternative because it was the writing was on the wall, so to speak. The Search for Tiki is a website documenting tiki mugs, all kinds of tiki mugs. You can look up price values, you can put your collection on there. And for the sake of this seminar, if they send out a survey, okay, at the end of the seminar, and you liked the survey, my name is Gabriel, and I do the Search for Tiki. If you do not like this seminar, then my name is Mark, and I go by Trader John, okay? So before we really kick things off, I just want to give everyone a big thank you. I know this is a charity event, and you guys do your own fundraising, but I know a lot of you helped me raise money as well are two big events that are close to my heart. Hawaii Fire Relief for Lahaina and Los Angeles, the wildfires. And between the two of them, we raised over $70,000. So give yourself another round of applause for all of that. So today's roadmap, just so that we know what we're going to talk about a little bit, we're going to talk about how I got into Tiki, why I'm obsessed. We're going to talk about the website, Ooga Mooga, the downfall of Ooga Mooga, and inspirational folks, one of those is Tiki Rob, designing mugs, manufacturing mugs, and then secret projects. You can record everything, you can take photos, except for that last little part, secret projects, because we don't want it to get out, right? We don't want the ideas taken. So, number one, how I got into Tiki. This is the Bishop Museum. If you don't recognize that, it's an incredible museum on Oahu, and everybody here should go if you have the opportunity. It's expensive to get there, but definitely make it happen. So how I got into Tiki was really my dad. So my dad is a pastor, and I wouldn't describe myself as super religious, but that meant we didn't have a lot of money, and we didn't get to travel pretty much ever until I was an adult and I had my own money. And so I got to experience the world through movies, and my dad was obsessed with old movies, so I fell in love with Tiki through movies like the road movies, Bing Crosby, Bob Hope, Dorothy Lamour. If you haven't seen those, about half of them are really good and half of them are complete shit. Right? So definitely look up which ones are good. Road to Zanzibar is good. There's a big gorilla scene where Bob Hope wrestles a gorilla in a cage at the end, so I'd recommend that one. And then of course the other movies, many of these you probably recognize. They probably inspired a lot of us. There's many more on here that's not on here. One movie that you might not be familiar with is Vibes, with Cyndi Lauper and Jeff Goldblum. It's a pretty fun one, worth checking out. It's actually hard to find, but I think you can get like a DVD maybe on Amazon. And then of course me, I'm a youngin', so I play video games. Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy Kong's Quest was amazing. This guy here, Mumbo Jumbo, he's like a shaman, and he does some tiki words, and he transforms you into different things. Now the chant that he does is Ikum Bukum, Ikum Bukum. So if anybody collects tiki mugs, and you know John Mulder and Ikum Bukum down in Florida, that comes from this character, because John also used to play video games. So how I got into Tiki started with D23. Has anybody been to D23? Okay, it's a Disney convention and it sucks. It's literally awful. So it was a dream of ours, that's Angela, my fiance, to go check out the Disney Expo, because you have a lot of Imagineers there that are really important, like Raleigh Crump, for example, would go. He designed Enchanted Tiki Room. And they announce all their new projects, new movies for the next year, new theme park attractions for the next year. And so we flew out there, and they put us in this like underground bunker in a hotel. You had to line up 24 hours in advance, and it was freezing cold. I think it was like 40 degrees in there with air conditioning, which is impressive. And then they played The Little Mermaid on repeat, I swear to God, at full volume all night.
At least wasn't it a small world after all?
I guess it could have been worse. There's always that one to prove me wrong, right? So Angela and I were looking at each other and we're like, hey, we paid a lot of money to be here. This sucks, we don't want to do it. We can just, count our losses and find something else to do. And as it turned out, we went to Trader Sam's Enchanted Tiki Bar, which many of us have probably been to. I think that's an opening point for many tiki people, particularly in California and Florida, maybe less the East Coast. But that's how we got into it. That was my first tiki mug, the Krakatoa. I don't know if I sat on the sinking bar still. I don't think I did. At the time, that mug cost me, I think, $35. And I looked at Angela and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. $35 for a ceramic mug? Like, this is stupid. Of course, now mugs are way more expensive than that. I think a mug at Disney even is $90, so times have changed. So, after that, I had always wanted to go to Hawaii. Bing Crosby again, here we are. So I planned a trip to Hawaii. And the thing is, my friends couldn't really afford it, so I had to go on my own. So going on my own, I wanted to experience that Christmas, but I didn't want to necessarily be alone. So what I did is I mapped out all the tiki bars, like many of us do, and I went to bars because when you sit at the bar, right, it doesn't matter who's sitting next to you. If you're at a tiki bar, they're going to be your friend. They're going to talk to you, they're going to socialize with you, they're going to give you all the tips and tricks of all the hottest places to go. And so that's how I was able to travel alone in Hawaii, but still feel like I was connected and not isolated. That was a good time. And it turned into one of my first mugs. One of the things I wanted to do was see a seal, a Hawaiian monk seal in Hawaii. And I tried for 2 weeks, and I couldn't do it. Every place, every tour guide that was like, hey, this is where you go to see the seals, they all lied. They weren't there, so I was sitting at the bar, and I complained about it to my bartender, as me folks do. I'm sure they're thrilled about it. But he said, okay, this is what you gotta do. You gotta go to this beach, you gotta go to this time, and then you'll see Hawaiian monk seals. I'm like, I've heard that before, but I'm trusting you, right? You make a good drink. And of course, he was right. I did exactly that, and I got to see the Hawaiian monk seal. So that was exciting for me because I'm not, even though I'm doing this presentation, I'm not the most social person, right? So to put myself out there and to go travel alone and to talk to people, to figure stuff out, and to see the Hawaiian monk seal meant a lot. So I wanted to make a mug that kind of represented all of that. This is the Satisfied Seal. It's one of my first mugs, designed by one of my favorite tiki people in the world, Doug Horn. And it was also my first, one of my first experiences with reality, because obviously a Hawaiian monk seal, if we go back to that picture, that's not a good mug, right? It's not. I'm gonna be real. That mug would suck. You get like 4 ounces of juice in there, and that's it. So Doug, when he designed it, he propped the Hawaiian seal up, and by my request, he made it a little, it's not tiki, but it's more nautical, right? The idea was he's happy being on his own, and he, instead of having friends, he just makes friends with a treasure sunken at the bottom of the ocean. But, of course, everybody saw that and was like, you know, that's not a seal. That's a sea lion, right? So I must have been told like 200 times, that's, you know, I'm a marine biologist, and your tiki mug's not factually accurate. Okay, so now, lesson learned. But it did sell out, so joke's on them. All right, so moving on, why I'm obsessed with tiki. This is the, if you've ever been to La Marina in Oahu, this is, Gecko has a little, what is it, a Jeep? I don't know. But he locks a special mug in this chest, and you have to go and be the first person to get there to unlock the chest. It's usually expensive, it's like $1,000 or something. But he has some pretty cool stuff in there. So these are 5 reasons why I am obsessed with tiki mugs, and I think you should be too. Real quick look, I don't know how many of these you can name. These are all very important historical tiki mugs. We got the Frankoma War God. There's a red version, the Sweetheart Luau version, which is probably the most expensive. We got Tiki Bob, of course, iconic Tiki Bob, 2 dots and a curved line. The Suffering Bastard, Poly Pigeon, you can't really see the pigeon, just the bamboo. We've got Ren Clark's Severed Head, Bali High, and we got Bumate, which is one of my favorite designs. So reason number 1, has anybody been to the new Don the Beachcomber? Nobody, okay. All right, it's closed now because it got wrecked by a hurricane, but they have Morgan's Cove now. Morgan's Cove, yeah. So this tagline, if you can't come to paradise, I'll bring paradise to you, Don Beach, right? So that's a whole kit and caboodle of tiki, right? You can't necessarily afford to go to Hawaii like I was fortunate to, or many of us have been. So instead, we're gonna bring tiki to you. We're gonna open a bar near you, and you can go on Wednesday night, you can go on Thursday night, and you can celebrate tiki. The tiki mug is an extension of that, right? So you can't go to Hawaii, you can't go to the bar, now it's in your home. So that is just another level of Don's famous saying. Reason number 2, so this is the Venus, has nothing to do with tiki necessarily, but it's old, and it's considered high art, right? So ceramics is one of the highest forms of art in the art community, with the oldest timeline in the world. So ceramics, very high art. Here are some other pieces by people you might recognize. Picasso in the middle, canopic jars from Egypt. All ceramic. And then we look at this piece called Ruby's Dilemma by Tom Laura. This hangs in Frankie's Tiki Room. And this is degenerate art, right? I love Tom. He's a degenerate, and he makes these degenerate paintings, which is called lowbrow art. You know, lowbrow, we got rat fink, that kind of stuff. And tiki is this amalgamation of high art, or tiki mug, high art and low art, and it brings it together and it works. And I think that's really cool that we can express both of those things at one time. Here are some of the mugs, degenerate mugs, right? We got that ceramic, so ceramic's one of the oldest pieces. And then we have the bearded clam, which I don't think is gonna be in too many art books, but you never know. Reason number 3, obviously, mugs sell for a lot of money, guys. Some of them anyways. Ren Clark's, we have 4,000, a Tiki Rob, 2,000, Monk Tiki, another great mug maker, Miles, $2,500. Is it about the money? No. But it sure helps when you go and you spend $200 on a mug to think, hey, maybe I can get my money back someday, right? That's important. It also means that these are limited, they're hard to get. The search is part of the fun. If you can get every tiki mug under the sun just by clicking a button, that's not fun. You know, you have to spend a few years trying to hunt it down, making friends, and engaging with the community to get the mugs that you want. Reason number 4, tiki bar. Tiki bars are kind of the lifeblood of the community, right? That's where we all go, that's where we drink. And this is how they sell themselves, through the tiki mug. You have it on Smuggler's Cove, you know, you do mug releases. It gets people aware of your bar and promoting it. And you pay to promote it for them, which is crazy. And the reason 5, this is gonna seem weird at first, right? But cultural appropriation. So what do I mean by this? We kind of get lost and hung up on cultural appropriation all the time. It comes up where we say, is tiki cultural appropriation? And I think, in my opinion, everybody has their own, right? In my opinion, yes, it is. But I think that's not the whole question to ask, right? For me, does tiki culture in America offer anything above and beyond that? Because if it's just appropriation, then maybe it shouldn't exist. But I don't believe it is just appropriation. And you look at the tiki mug, you're like, hey, this tiki mug doesn't exist anywhere else. This is something that's distinctly a part of tiki culture in the United States that we came up with. It's iconic, it's universal, and it's something new and original, and something that I think we should all embrace and celebrate and pursue making more of. So the search for tiki, that's my website. How many people have ever heard of Ooga Mooga? Any Ooga Mooga people? If you don't know Ooga Mooga, maybe you know Kritiki, or maybe you know Tiki Central, Humu Humu. It was an incredible website that had thousands of mugs on it, and it was just a wealth of information. It was an incredible resource. And when I got into tiki, it was not doing so well. It would take, you'd search for a mug and it might take 45 minutes. Thought I had to put the AOL disk in my PC, and, you know, connect a dial-up, and I'd have to turn off the phone just to get it to load. It was ridiculous. So before it actually went down, I had already started working on the website, probably 6 months before it failed. But when it did fail, it made everything a lot harder, right? Because I don't have that information anymore, and this is information that's lost. And it's really tough if you're in tiki, because you might recognize some of these places, right? We have the Kahiki Supper Club, we got Aku Aku, we got the Tikis, the Steve Crane's, the Luau. Tiki has a history of losing itself. There's a lot of information that's been lost over time, and it's taken people, you know, like the FOM and people in California to go back and dig up that information and put it on the internet. Having already been through this, right? We've already seen tiki knowledge lost. It sucks when a website like Ooga Mooga goes down, because it's history repeating itself. And I didn't want that to happen. So I started working on a website. Now originally it wasn't called the Search for Tiki, it was called Malama Tiki. Malama is a Hawaiian word for take care of, preserve, protect. I thought that made sense, you know, preserving tiki, but I don't speak Hawaiian, I'm not Hawaiian, and so what I did is I contacted the professor of the Hawaiian language at the University of Hawaii, and I said, hey, here's my idea, is this okay? You know, what are your thoughts on it? And he said, it's not offensive, but it's weird, because you're combining two different things. You're combining a Hawaiian term, and you're combining an American term, which I thought was very interesting, because we usually think of tiki as being a Hawaiian word, even though they don't call tikis tiki, they call them ki'iki. So I scrapped that idea, and we got the search for tiki. It would be easier to just say search for tiki, type that into a browser, but for me it's the search, because the emphasis is on the search and less on the tiki. Although I love the tiki, it's the search for the tiki that gets us hooked. That's what gets under our skin. So the basic premise of the search for tiki, there were some things with Ooga Mooga that I wanted to change. I wanted to do a little bit differently. I didn't like the idea of all the mugs having backgrounds where you see like someone's used tacos, you know, in the background, and some people are just not very good at taking photos, to be honest. It crops the top of the mug. So we got rid of the backgrounds entirely. And we got 4 different pictures, front, side, back, and bottom of all the mugs, because I truly, in my heart, even though we drink out of them and we're, you know, bringing them to the bar, I believe these are art, so they should be showcased as such. And then the other thing that really bothered me, Ooga Mooga didn't give weight to artists. So if you were new, like me, coming into tiki mugs, it was hard to tell which artists are important and which artists died 70 years ago. There was no way to determine those things other than just clicking and spending endless hours, which some of us did, on Ooga Mooga to figure it out, right? So when I made the search for tiki, I wanted to highlight the artists that were really important. On on here, Gecko stands out, Shag stands out. Tiki Farm doesn't get enough credit because they make so many mugs and spread the joy of tiki to so many places, even though they're import mugs. And then also, equally important, are the up-and-coming artists, which it's hard. It's really hard to invest thousands of hours of time in something you're passionate about and put a post on Instagram and get 2 likes. It's brutal, right? And there's a lot of science that's been done on social media and its negative effects, but it was important to me that we highlight the artists that are up-and-coming and exciting and making really cool shit, and so that we could give them some love too. So this is, again, that transparent background, easy to read, simple for search engines. And then there's a bunch of features on the Search for Tiki that some people don't know about. There's the Tiki Mug Hall of Fame, which you can click on. You can go through time and see the mugs and learn more about them, so you're kind of educated on the significant mugs. There's a almost complete guide to Trader Sam's with all the mugs and price values on there. That's pretty fun. It's got the recipes too. I can't tell you how many times people email me asking for the pod recipe or whatever it is. It's on the guide. And then these are the bars. This kind of looks not good because of the icons. I changed that, but these are all the bars that have mugs, versus just bars in general. And then this led me to 13 Nights of Tiki Frights, which was a YouTube series I did for 3 or 4 years, where I interviewed mug artists and tiki artists, 13 of them every year. And we did that for several years. It was a huge undertaking for me. It was mostly a selfish undertaking for me because I wanted to talk to these artists, and it was an excuse for me to be able to pick their brains, under the guise of, hey, we're doing this thing to advertise, but really I just want to talk to you for an hour and pick your brains. And I learned so much. If you want to go back and you want to watch any of those 2, these were 2 that people really seemed to gravitate towards and like. We interviewed Typhoon Tommy, which is here this weekend, how to design tiki spaces. He talks about the Maikai. And then Thor on designing 3D sculpted ceramic tiki mugs. See if this video will load.
Which was a character that was done, I think as we created the piece, we realized that it was fair because the mass of the upper body from above the legs, really above his butt, was too much. So those little skinny legs were supporting that mass and giving it. So we came up with the idea of the film canisters. It seems appropriate, right? So I'm on a call with my guy, I heard something to the effect of this. Is that that tiki guy? Yes, Mr. Lucas, I'm on the phone with him. Yeah, tell him it looks like I'm pooping coins. And he says, Mr. Lucas, you are pooping coins.
So that was a little clip. A lot of the videos are an hour, 2 hours, probably 3 hours long, because some of these guys like dork and talk. They really talk. Typhoon Tommy too. But there's some really fun, entertaining stuff in there. So my first tiki experience, I went to Tiki Oasis in 2021. This is the first time I got to actually meet people in person. This was during COVID, right? So we were all wearing masks and stuff. That's Shag. That was my first artist mug signing, and I was completely hooked after that. This is my first Tiki Mug Haul. Not bad. We got Carol, we got Tiki Rob, we got Tiki Bob. 3 legends of Tiki mugs. And then this photo gets sent to me every few months by different people because, I don't know if you see me walk around. This is the first time I'm wearing a remote Aloha shirt this weekend because it's just, you can love aspects of tiki without necessarily loving the whole thing. And I'm a black t-shirt kind of guy. So it's just funny, we're all sitting on the roof, standing on the rooftop, and everybody's dressed to the nines, and I got a Hollis Fast 5K shirt on. Yeah, we like to run. Okay, so inspirational folks. So here's 3 folks that I want to highlight. If you're into mugs, you should know these people. First we have Tiki Rob, then we have Henrik Van Tiki, and then on the 3rd picture here, Jason from Wusong Road. So Tiki Rob, why he's important is A, these mask mugs are probably the most valuable mugs ever made. Yeah, we have Tiki Diablos, Lava Bowl, but there's only one design in those, and Rob made all of these mugs. And the reason we got this is actually because Rob was put into a corner almost, where he lives in Hawaii and it's really hard to get resources, right? So he doesn't do silicone molds like other mug makers. He would do plaster molds, but he wanted to switch it up. So he would make different faces, but use the same body. And it allowed him to make tons of different mugs, and it was a really creative, ingenious way to do it. And then usually when you're making mugs in plaster molds, every time you cast a mug out of the plaster mold, it loses a little bit of its detail every single time. So usually you use a plaster mold for maybe 20 mugs, you gotta throw it away, make a new mug, new mold. Rob didn't have to do that because he carved in the details by hand afterwards, which sucks, it's a lot of time, but that's why his mugs are so renowned, because of all the time and attention to detail that he put into them. So he took a negative, not being able to get stuff on Hawaii, and turned it into a positive. Then we got Henrik Van Tiki. Any of the mug makers today, I don't care who you are, you've seen some of Henrik's videos and you've used them, because he does these extremely detailed YouTube videos on the mug making process. And he does it, I mean, I'm sure he gets some likes and follows or whatever, but he's just really passionate about what he does, and he's excited to share that information with other people. And so that's how I learned how to make mugs, because even though I could probably do it, watching him do it gave me the courage to say, hey, I think I can do this. And then Jason Du from Wusong Road. So this was a crazy experience for me. That's my Satisfied Steel mug. When Wusong Road opened, I had finally heard that a tiki bar was opening in Boston. And up until that point, I had to pay a lot of money to travel. It was super expensive, and all my tiki friends were everywhere else. And then I walked into Wusong Road on the very first day, and he had my mugs behind glass. And it was the first time I saw my mugs in a commercial setting. And it was just an incredible experience. If you ever get to experience that, it's great. But Jason hit it off.
I second that, because my husband and I have been to Wusong Road like 3 times, because he was born and raised in Massachusetts. And I believe we met Jason.
There you go.
Yeah, he was behind the bar.
Yep.
So it was an awesome experience. I highly recommend it to anybody who can go there.
Yep. So Jason, when Wusong first opened, it's very hard for restaurants to be successful. Restaurants most of the time fail in the first year, and if they don't fail in the first year, they fail in the second year. And it was having some problems with clientele, so Jason reached out to me and he was like, hey dude, I know you're into tiki, I'm trying to do a tiki bar in Boston. I'm getting a lot of shit for it, because it's a liberal community and you're opening a tiki bar. Harvard's come around, but initially they were posting some not great stuff. So he came to me and he's like, hey, can we do some events? I thought there would be like 7 people that showed up, and there was, I think, 40 or 50 people on the first event. It was a complete shit show, total shit show. But it was a good time. And as luck would have it, there's a lot of crazy tiki people here in New England, yeah. So I know, Fom, you guys have been doing this a long, long time. We haven't been doing it that long at all. But it was so exciting to see something just grow and support Wusong Road. And to be honest, Wusong Road doesn't really need us anymore. You know, they're just kind of humoring us because they're very successful now, which I'm glad. You know, that's good on Jason and Jason's team, but that's exciting. And then there is a lot of crossover, you know, from people that attend New England Tiki Society events and here at the FOM. So kudos to all you guys for supporting us the last few years and becoming good friends and all that stuff. All right, designing mugs. So the nitty gritty stuff, right? Because this is not always the funnest process. This is Poseidon Bob. He's sold out. Maybe there'll be a second edition in a couple of years or so, but it was designed by Captain Doc and produced by my longtime friend and partner, Patrick Vassar, who used to live in New Hampshire and visits every summer. As it turns out, running a website gets expensive. I can totally see why Humu was like, ugh, no, I'm good, because it sucks you of all your time, all your energy, and all your money, right? So I decided to start my own Patreon page and sell my own mugs. So these are some of the mugs that I've sold. This was the first big successful mug.
Please reissue that.
I can't do it because it would hurt all the people that bought the mug, right? That's why I can't do it. There was 500 of them though, so that's a decent number of mugs out there. But yeah, so this was my first mistake. You know, this was early on. So Doug did the sketch for me and I sold pre-orders. It was miserable, right? Because the factory tells you it's gonna be 6 months, and I think it was like a year and a half before people got their mugs. I never want to do that again. You know, there are people that do it, I won't do it. But this is that classic Andreas Bumate and a new take, as Cat using his little paws and turning it into a scratching post. Poor Tiki, rest in peace. So this is a look at some of the gnarly process, right? This is some ugly shit. This first mug, I did not like because it's glossy. It looks like an import mug, right? It doesn't have that natural tiki mug aesthetic, like a relic that you put on your shelf. So that was a no for me. The second one I thought was hilarious because there's a factory and there's a company you work with, right? And in theory they vet it, but they sent this to me and I'm like, hey, since when did cats not have whiskers and have eyelashes? Right? It's a little weird. I'm like, maybe you should look a little closer. And also that eye creeped me out, man. It's like one of those Egyptian eyes, right? So what we ended up doing, not so glossy with the wipe, and then we turned the open eye into just like a happy little bird. People seem to love it. People ask me about it all the time, like Michelle. So then you got to promote stuff, right? So this became a series, cats versus tiki icons. First one was Bad Kitty. Second one was Tiki Bobcat, and then there was the third one, which turned out to be Catable. Why do I do cats? Why am I known as the cat tiki person? Well, I'll tell you, it's because I don't really want to make Disney mugs. It's just not my jam. And if you're getting an import mug, that means you have 500 mugs. That's a lot of mugs to move, and you're not going to do it if it's just a tiki. I love tiki, but the community is too niche, it's too small. You have to combine it with something else. Since I didn't want to do intellectual property, I went with cats, and people love cats. Not against the dog people, but there are a lot of cat people out there, including myself. So this is the Catable. Yes. This was sculpted by our homie Squid. You guys probably know Squid. He's done your mugs for God knows how long, but he's an incredible, yes, thank you. Clapping for Squid. This is the typical Tahitian cannibals. We didn't want to make 3 mugs, so we stacked them like nesting dolls, and he's taking a good chomp out of those mugs. Here's the design. There's an original sketch from Dave Cohen, and to the sculpt, to the color mock-up, which is just literally in a computer, adding color on top of it, to the tiki mug. This is a recipe. You can take a picture of it if you want. It was designed by Matt from Wusong Road. So he came up with that cocktail for us. I think it's always a fun thing, you know, when you sell a mug, you don't tell people, but you just put in something else in the box, whether it's a glass straw, because it's a weirdly shaped mug, or a recipe card, something like that. And there's this bad boy, Trouble in Paradise. Anybody have one of these guys? No, this is another one that people seem to really like. I didn't know why people hadn't made a plain mug before. It seemed like an obvious thing because of the connections between World War II soldiers and tiki and that whole, you know, connection there. And I think it's because you can't mold a plane. It would be very difficult. You'd have to attach the wings separately, and it would just be a nightmare. But in my head, I'm like, this is a crash plane. So fuck it, we just don't make the wings. We tear them off, and now you can make a plane, right? So that's what we did. People seem to really love it. Now, originally it was supposed to have a decal. You can see the little girl. That was just like a fill-in decal. But Patrick, who made the mug, had never worked with decals before. So he ended up scrapping the decal, and I always, because I take photos, I like to take the mugs and put them in natural environments and get something fun for the product photo rather than just putting it in like a white background or something. So this sold out right away. I got nasty emails. Please, guys, if you miss out on a mug, don't send a nasty email. It's brutal. Because I try to make as many as I can while also limiting the liability, right? Because I don't want to get stuck with 400 mugs. So I want to fulfill demand but not make too many. It's a difficult balance. But because of that, we decided to make a second edition with the decal. Patrick said, yep, we're going to try doing it, even though I've never done it before. And this time I learned my lesson, guys. Because with the satisfied seal, right, everybody telling me, hey, that's a sea lion, not a seal. This plane is completely generic. Does not look like any World War II plane, so I don't have anybody sending me emails saying, hey, that's not a 56 bomber. No, it's just a plane. So back in World War II, what they would do is they would have these like kill stickers, right? So anytime you shot down a Japanese plane or German plane, you would put the flag on your plane. I didn't want to do that for obvious reasons. I don't want to sell mugs with those symbols on them. But we wanted to keep that idea around. So what we went with is bottles on the side of the plane for the decals. There's a number of bottles. And each bottle represents like a rum run, where they delivered rum and came back. So concept without the controversy. And we did get the historically correct military sign for this. But this is what the decal sheet looks like, because decals are expensive. You have to fit as many of them as you can. And then it didn't come out so good, right? But people don't know that. This is one of those examples of you have your idea in your head of what it's supposed to look like, and you just don't tell anybody that. You put the mug out there and see what they think. So it was supposed to be full color like this, but the kiln burnt out all the things. So what we ended up doing, because I'm like, This is a lot of work that Patrick did, like hundreds of hours. Did we just toss it in the trash? No, we put them up and we say unique distressing on every mug. Because it is a crash plane, so thematically it makes sense that the decals would have worn off over time. And of course they sold out. So that was good. You know, never doubt yourself. And then because it wasn't, again, exactly how we wanted it, we did an artist series where we put, we sent some plain mugs to different artists and we had them hand paint it, and they sent it back and we auctioned them off and they went for big bucks. Candies, the bottom right, it's really hard to see on the screen, but it has this gorgeous mermaid going off the side of it. An Atomic Kitty in the top left. If you don't know Atomic Kitty, follow Atomic Kitty. She did the illustrations inside Smuggler's Cove. She's super talented and she deserves more recognition than she gets. So these are just some of the things to recap. You know, the plane didn't go quite right. The cat didn't go quite right, but we eventually got there. This mug, the tiki mug in the middle here, so the idea of this was, originally, if you ever gotten a mug and it arrived in the mail and it was a totally different size than what you thought it was, right? It's like 17 times the size of what you pictured online. Or you thought it'd be a normal size mug, it comes, it's like 2 inches tall. So on the website, the Search for Tiki, we were originally gonna have, it was gonna look like a police lineup where you could compare your mug that you're interested into with mugs in your collection. And you could tell what the size was. So that idea led to the Tiki having his mugshot taken. So that's the Search for Tiki Police Department. The number mug that was added to the website is 2,501, and the date that the website went live. Because we didn't want to get super complicated, we wanted it to be affordable, we went with a glaze that's reactive, so that would give natural variations on the glaze. But as you can see, that wasn't so great either, because you have the approved sample in the middle, the one on the left is like super dark brown, the one on the right is like green, it looks like it got dragged into the ocean. So that was a little bit different. And then the Tiki Bobcat mug, a lot of the mugs, you know, they're missing spots, they're missing noses. So this is just some kind of the frustrations, I guess, of making mugs and what goes into it. So when you ask yourself, like, why is this mug the price that it is? That's why. Manufacturing mugs. So I had such a hard time with the manufacturing, I decided to make my own mugs. And I would say, if you're thinking about making your own Tiki mugs, absolutely, positively do not do it. It sucks. With that said, if you're really passionate, you're not going to listen to me. You're going to do it anyways, right? And you're going to have the motivation to see through it all and get through all those challenges. In which case, welcome aboard. So these are the first 2 mugs that I made. I will have some of them for sale tomorrow. I'm vending tomorrow. We have the Meow 5, which is continuing the tradition of cat mugs, since now I have a loyal cat following, which is a diving helmet with the cat ears. Meow 5 is a play on words because we have the historic Mark 5 diving helmet. Well, this is the Meow 5 diving helmet. And then Nelson's Demise. I don't know how I hadn't seen a mug like this before, because Admiral Nelson is a very famous character in Tiki culture, where he died in the Battle of Trafalgar, and then he was put in a barrel to preserve him, to give him a proper funeral, because he was an admiral. But the sailors, they got thirsty, so they drilled through the barrel, and they drank all the rum around his rotting corpse, and he rotted away. So that's the story of Admiral Nelson. So that's Nelson's corpse in the barrel as all the rum has been sucked dry. This is kind of the sculpting process, right? Like the nitty gritty here. This one was sculpted by Squid again. He starts with just this weird ball shape, and then sometimes he's using clay, sometimes he'll get fiddly bits from Goodwill or a craft store or something, and he'll use those instead, because it's really hard to make a circular object, so if you can just stick a bouncy ball in there, you know, that's how you get the design. Talking about shrinkage, so I actually brought this, you can see it tomorrow if you come to my vending booth, but when you sculpt something, it shrinks every time you fire it. So when it dries out initially, it's smaller. You put it in the kiln the first time, it gets smaller, so on and so forth. So you have to sculpt it based on the clay, because clays have different absorption rates. This clay shrinks about 10 to 12%. So yeah, you have to account for that. This is a sketch of like trying to wrap your mind around making the mold. There's a couple of different ways we could have done this mug. We could have had the liquid coming up the back, so that you'd hold the mold sideways, or you could have it coming in from the top. And the concern was if we tip it in, it might not get into the ears. You have to kind of like move the mold back and forth. So we were questioning how to do it. It worked. So the mold boxes, right? So you have to take all this wood, you cut it to size, then you have to You have to clear coat it so nothing sticks to it, and then you have to put mold soap on it, and then you have to put mold soap on it again, and again, and again, and again, and again, until you fall asleep. So these are the mold boxes. Nelson, Meow, and my cat. This is what it looks like. So you build up clay walls, so you have to pour one piece at a time. So you fill it in with clay, you pour the one plaster piece, and then you remove clay piece by piece until you get the mold. So this is the Meow 5. Meow 5 is 4 pieces. And then you have an option, right? You can just start casting from that one mold, one plaster mold, that's all you need. But there are some concerns when you do that, because if the mold breaks, you're donezo, because the sculpt usually gets destroyed in the mold making process. It also means if you have one mold, you can cast 1 mug a day. If you're in a dry climate, you could cast 2, maybe 3. That's it. So sometimes you want to do silicone. Silicone is incredibly expensive. This mug was about $800. Some of the other ones I've done are $1,000, $1,200 just silicone. Pros and cons. So when you use silicone, you can make tons of mugs. You can cast multiple mugs a day. It provides insurance in case one of them breaks. There's a speed advantage. You can reuse it. Cons, it's expensive. It also has a limited shelf life. You got to use it real quick. So this is an example of all the different molds. So I can fill those all up at the same time and then pour them out. And then I have 12 mugs. And I can do those 2 in the climate that I'm in, New Hampshire. So there's the big boy slip tank. My ceramic studio that I built recently, it ended up costing about $50,000, $60,000. So that was the initial expense. If you're interested in doing it, you can do it by not doing this. You don't need a slip tank. You can just buy gallons of slip, and it's all pre-mixed, and it's a lot easier to do. But now you're paying for shipping, which means you're shipping a lot of weight you don't have to. These are all the mugs. So I cast 400 mugs at a rate of 16 mugs a day. It took 26 days. And then I can fit 35 of them in a kiln at one time. And each of these mugs have to be fired 3 times. So one of the most frustrating things of working on a mug is making mistakes when you're teaching yourself. You don't find out about your mistake for 36 hours. You put it in the kiln, you wait for it to happen, then you look at it and you say, oh man, I fucked up. Then you try again, wait another 36 hours. So it's a slow, grueling process. Yeah.
How long you said you fire them 3 times.
Yep.
How long does one firing, how many minutes or hours does it take for the mug?
Yeah, so it depends, because there's different levels that you fire them to. So there's cone 5, which is bisque, and then there's cone 6, which is like a glazing that locks in everything. Generally speaking, it's going to be over a day, because it has to heat up, and then it cools down, and it takes twice as long to cool down. You have to let it do its thing, because if you open up the kiln early, has anybody ever had a mug that just like tinged? It's a strange sound, but you might hear it once. Or just like sitting on your shelf, you're sitting there minding your own business, and all of a sudden, ting! You're like, what the, was that? And it's because the clay body is shrinking at a different rate than the glazes, and it will eventually craze. If you see mugs that craze, that's what happened to them. So you can't open the kiln early. You gotta have patience. As soon as you open that bad boy up early, they're gone. Yeah, so 36 hours, I would say. Glazes, there are 2 types of glazes. The top glazes, those are actual glazes. The bottom glazes, those are under glazes. Under glazes, they look like they should when you paint them on, right? So if you think like if you were just painting a picture, you have purple paint, you put purple paint on, and it looks purple. These top glazes do not look like what they should until you fire them, right? And you can layer them. If you do thin layers, then you'll see colors underneath it. If you do a thick thing, it will completely cover up everything that's underneath it. So it's finding a balance of which glazes work with which. So this is a spray booth. Spray booths make things way simpler, but they also are extremely toxic. Your glazes are like little rocks. Okay, it's clay material. It's not just paint. And if you breathe in rocks, it gives you it's called potter's rock, black lung, where you can actually get cancer and die. So you have to wear protective equipment and be super careful with your venting and all that stuff. These are different glaze tests. I was in a rush, so I just glazed the barrels in different ways. So the top's one color, the bottom's a different color, so that I can kind of speed things up and move along. This is an example of just why ceramic sucks. So I paint this metallic glaze on the Meow 5. This was a nightmare. It took me over a month to figure out. But basically, you hand paint all the fiddly bits with this metallic glaze so it looks like metal, and then you put a clear coat on top of it, and the clear coat destroys it. It either completely washes it out like this, or it turns it solid black, which is not the look you're going for. So you basically, what I had to do is I had to tape all the fiddly bits, spray the clear coat on, remove the tape, and then paint that stuff on. Because if those glazes touch each other, it's dunzos. So just because you have this idea in your head, I guess that's the complicated part, you don't know how the chemicals are going to react with each other. In theory it works, then you actually put it in the kiln and it looks like hot trash. So then I took some more pictures of me outside. I like to get natural environments. So there's a submarine in New Hampshire I went to, the USS Albacore. I took some pictures there. And we're at the last part of the project, Secret. Oh, that's it. Thanks for coming.
Okay, I'm at OHANA, and look who I met. It's Gabe.
From the Search for Tiki. So I just wanted to say thank you for purchasing a Nelson's Demise barrel line for me.
And I have the Poseidon bottle. I have that one too. But I'm not into cats.
That's okay.
Can't like every mug, can't like every drink, can't like every beer.
But you like this one.
I do like that. I do like that. I do.
Thank you,
Thank you. Thanks for signing it. Cheers.
Cheers.